Admiral Olivia Clark stood by the large window in the United Nations Space Command headquarters. The sky outside was clear blue, but all eyes were on the screens showing something that changed human history forever. A massive ship, unlike anything built by human hands, hung in Earth's orbit. "Magnify Sector 4, she ordered, her voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. The screen zoomed in on a section of the alien vessel. Its surface wasn't smooth like human ships. It had odd angles and materials that seemed to shift colors under Earth's sunlight. "Any response to our greeting message?" she asked. Lieutenant Frank Harris shook his head. "Nothing yet, Admiral. We've broadcast on all frequencies for the past 6 hours." The room fell silent. 50 of Earth's top military leaders and scientists waited, barely breathing. After decades of searching the stars for signs of life, life had found them instead. The main screen flickered. Everyone tensed. "Incoming transmission," Harris announced. "They're responding." "Put it through," Clark ordered. The screen filled with an alien face. It had 4 eyes set in a wide skull and skin that looked like polished stone. When it spoke, its mouth moved in strange ways, but the sound came through clearly in English. "Humans of Earth," the alien said, its voice deep and echoing through the speakers. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council, the ruling body of civilized space. Your species has been observed and found lacking in development. You will submit to Council governance or face consequences." Admiral Clark felt a chill run down her spine, but kept her expression neutral. This was not the friendly greeting they had hoped for. "Recording ended," Harris said. "They're waiting for a response." General Peter Morgan, standing beside Clark, frowned. "They translated our language perfectly. They must have been watching us for some time." Clark nodded. "And they didn't come to make friends." She turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel." The young woman nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Clark straightened her uniform and looked directly at the camera. "This is Admiral Olivia Clark of the United Nations Space Command. We welcome contact with the Galactic Council and look forward to peaceful relations. However, Earth is a sovereign planet. We respectfully decline your offer of governance and invite diplomatic discussion instead." She signaled to cut the transmission. "What now?" Morgan asked quietly. "Now we wait," Clark replied, "and prepare for anything." They didn't wait long. Alarms blared across the command center. "The alien vessel is powering up weapon systems," Harris shouted. "Energy readings are off the charts." Clark didn't hesitate. "Activate Defense Grid Alpha. All stations on full alert." Across Earth, hidden defense platforms hummed to life. Developed in secret after finding a crashed alien scout ship in the Arctic 20 years ago, the defense system was humanity's best-kept secret. "Defense Grid online," Harris confirmed. "Shields at maximum capacity." On the screen, parts of the alien ship glowed bright orange as weapon systems charge. "They're targeting major cities," Morgan said, looking at the tactical display. "Washington, Beijing, Moscow, London." Clark's eyes narrowed. "Let them try." The alien ship fired. Streams of energy shot toward Earth. When they hit the previously invisible shield grid, they spread out like water on glass, harmlessly dispersed. Silence filled the command center. "No damage reported," Harris finally said. "Shields holding at 97% capacity." Clark allowed herself a small smile. "Send another message to our visitors." Once the channel opened, she spoke clearly. "Galactic Council representatives, your demonstration is noted. However, as you can see, Earth is not defenseless. We again invite diplomatic discussion. But understand this, humanity will not be threatened into submission." The alien ship's weapons powered down. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a new message came through. "We will send representatives to discuss terms. Prepare a meeting location." Admiral Clark nodded to herself. "They expected us to panic, to beg. They don't understand humans very well." General Morgan smiled grimly. They'll learn. Outside, people around the world looked up at the sky, unaware how close they had come to attack. Unaware that humanity had just stood its ground against the greatest power in the galaxy, and the Galactic Council, for the first time in 1,000 years, faced a species that didn't flinch. Ambassador Sean Foster adjusted his tie as he waited in the newly built meeting station orbiting Earth. The circular room had been constructed in just 3 days, floating in space as neutral ground between the human world and the massive council ship. "They're arriving," said his assistant, Lily Wells. Foster nodded. He had been chosen to represent Earth because of his calm nature and diplomatic experience. But nothing in his 20 years of international negotiations had prepared him for this. The door on the opposite side of the room slid open. 7 aliens entered, each different from the others. Foster tried to hide his surprise. The council wasn't one species, but many. The tallest alien stepped forward. It looked like a giant praying mantis with dark green skin and multiple eyes that blinked in no particular pattern. Foster recognized it from the video message as the main speaker. "I am Xarl Voth, head counselor of the Galactic Council," it said, its mouthparts moving strangely as it spoke perfect English. "These are representatives of the Council's ruling species." Foster bowed slightly. Ambassador Sean Foster, representing the United Earth government. "Welcome to our solar system." The aliens took seats across the table. Foster noticed none of them seemed comfortable with the human-designed chairs. "Let me be direct," Xarl Voth said. "Your species has one standard galactic cycle to surrender sovereignty. The Council governs all civilized worlds. Earth will join or face consequences." "A galactic cycle?" Foster asked. A smaller alien with blue skin and 6 fingers on each hand answered. "Approximately 14 of your Earth months." Foster kept his expression neutral. "With respect, Counselor, we need to understand what Council governance means for Earth. What benefits would it bring our people?" The aliens looked at each other, clearly surprised by the question. "Benefits." Xarl Voth made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "The benefit is your continued existence. Planets that resist the Council face quarantine or eradication." Foster leaned forward. "Throughout human history, we have faced many threats of extinction. Each time, we've emerged stronger. Before discussing surrender, we request evidence that Council governance would improve life for Earth's people." "Evidence." The alien shifted uncomfortably. "The evidence is your continued existence after this meeting." Foster remained calm despite the clear threat. "Perhaps we could discuss trade instead of governance." "Cultural exchange." "Scientific cooperation." "You misunderstand your position," said another alien, this one with red scales and yellow eyes. "The Council doesn't request, it commands. Your weapons may have surprised us once, but they cannot match our full military might." Foster stood slowly. "Then I must return to Earth with your message. Our leaders will need time to consider." "You have one cycle," Xarl Voth repeated. "Use it wisely." As Foster left the station to board the human shuttle, his communication device vibrated. The message was encrypted, sent directly from Earth's Defense Command. "Operation Deterrent is ready. Council communications successfully breached. They underestimate us significantly." Foster allowed himself a small smile as the shuttle departed. The Council didn't know that humans had been monitoring their ship's communications since it arrived. Their encryption was surprisingly simple compared to what Earth's cyber defense teams worked with daily. Back on Earth, Foster reported to the United Nations Security Council. Representatives from every nation watched his recording of the meeting with grave faces. "They expect us to surrender without a fight," he concluded. Admiral Clark stood. "Then they don't know humans very well." "What options do we have?" asked the Chinese representative. General Morgan stepped forward. "We've analyzed their technology from the communications we intercepted. They're advanced, but not as advanced as they want us to believe." "And Project Prometheus?" the Russian president asked. "Fully operational," Morgan answered. "Our hidden fleet near Jupiter is ready. The quantum shield network can be expanded to cover our Moon and Mars colonies. The UN Secretary General looked around the room. We don't want war. But it seems the Council only understands strength. She turned to Foster. Return with our answer. Earth will not surrender. We invite the Council to reconsider their approach to diplomacy with our world. As Foster left to prepare for another meeting, he knew the Council would be shocked by humanity's refusal. Most species probably surrendered immediately when faced with their threats. But humans were different. When threatened, they didn't cower. They prepared to fight back. Director Laura Martinez walked through the massive underground facility beneath the Arizona desert. Her footsteps echoed against the metal floors as scientists and engineers worked around her at computer stations and testing areas. This hidden base, known only to a few hundred people on Earth, housed humanity's greatest secret, Project Prometheus. "Director, we've been expecting you," said Dr. Alan Wright, leading her toward the main control room. His white lab coat and tired eyes showed he had been working without much sleep. "Show me our progress," Martinez said. The weight of Earth's defense rested partly on her shoulders, and she felt it with every step. They entered a large circular room with screens covering the walls. Each showed different parts of the project. Some displayed ships being built in secret locations. Others showed weapon systems or shield generators. The quantum shield generators are now at 87% efficiency, Wright explained, pointing to a graph. "We've improved them using the technology from the crashed alien scout ship we found decades ago." Martinez nodded. 30 years earlier, a small alien craft had crashed in the Arctic. The pilot died, but the technology survived. Earth's governments united in secret to study it, knowing that someday aliens might return. "What about the Jupiter fleet?" she asked. Wright moved to another screen showing several ships hidden among Jupiter's many moons. The gravity displacement engines are online and functional. The fleet can move at faster than light speeds if needed. And our communications? Faster than light communications are stable. We can send messages instantly to any of our forces in the solar system. Martinez looked around at the busy workers. Most had families above ground who knew nothing about what happened here. And the Achilles Protocol. Wright lowered his voice. "Ready for deployment. The Council doesn't realize we've been monitoring their communications since they entered our solar system. Their encryption was surprisingly basic. They think we're primitive," Martinez said. "Let's maintain that illusion as long as possible." Wright led her to a private room with a single table and several chairs. Maps of the solar system covered the walls, showing defense positions and potential battle plans. "What have we learned from their communications?" Martinez asked. "The Council has conquered 17 other species in the last century," Wright said, pulling up files on a tablet. "Their standard approach is to threaten, demonstrate power, and accept surrender. They rarely need to actually fight, because most species give up right away." "Exactly. Fear is their greatest weapon." Wright showed her images of the 7 ruling Council species. But here's something interesting. They aren't as united as they pretend to be. 3 species hold most of the power. The others follow out of fear. Martinez studied the information. "So they bully their own members too?" "Yes. And there's more." Wright pulled up technical specifications. "Their weapons are advanced, but their tactics are simple. They haven't fought a real war in over 200 years. Martinez smiled slightly. "While humans have never stopped preparing for conflicts." "There's something else you should see." Wright opened another file. "We've completed our analysis of their ship. It contains technology from at least 4 different species, including systems the Council leadership didn't develop themselves. They stole it. We believe they found ancient technology from a dead civilization and claimed it as their own. They distribute it to control other species, but keep the most advanced systems for themselves." Martinez stood and walked to the window overlooking the main facility floor. Below, engineers worked on a sleek ship unlike any built on Earth before. "Is the defense satellite network ready?" she asked. "Yes. hidden in orbit around Earth, Mars, and Venus, undetectable to Council scans. Martinez checked her watch. The Council gave us 1 cycle to surrender. Let's use that time well. And if they attack before the deadline? Martinez turned, her face determined. Then they'll learn that threatening humans was their first mistake. Outside the facility, the Arizona desert looked empty and peaceful. No one passing by would guess that beneath the sand and rock, humanity was preparing not just to defend itself, but to change the balance of power across the galaxy. The Council didn't wait for their own deadline. Just 3 days after their ultimatum, 20 Council ships appeared near Mars, where humans had built their largest off-Earth colony. Commander Joseph Hernandez stood in the Mars Defense Center, watching the alien ships on the main screen. Unlike the diplomats on Earth, he wasn't surprised by this move. As a military strategist, he understood the Council's thinking. Strike at what seems to be a weaker target to show power. They're entering Mars orbit, reported Lieutenant Sophia Wilson. No communication attempts. How many colonists have we evacuated? Hernandez asked. 98% are in the underground shelters, Wilson replied. The remaining 2% are security personnel. Hernandez nodded. The Mars colony had been built with defense in mind. On the surface, it looked like simple research stations and living quarters. But beneath, connected by tunnels, was a massive complex that could house all 15,000 colonists safely. They're scanning the surface, another officer reported, focusing on the main colony dome. Let them look, Hernandez said calmly. They won't find anything interesting. The largest Council ship moved closer to Mars, positioning itself directly above the main colony. Smaller ships spread out to surround the planet. They're powering up weapons, Wilson announced, her voice steady despite the tension. Hernandez placed his hand on a scanner on his command chair. It read his fingerprints and DNA, confirming his identity. The small panel opened, revealing a red button. All personnel, this is not a drill, he announced over the base-wide system. Operation Trap is now active. Brace for possible impact. The Council ships fired. Energy beams struck the Mars colony dome, destroying the empty buildings. Dust and debris flew into the thin Martian atmosphere. Hernandez pressed the red button. Nothing seemed to happen at first. The Council ships continued to fire, destroying more surface structures. Then, suddenly, all 20 alien vessels went dark. Their lights turned off. Their engines stopped. They floated, dead in space. Quantum link established, Wilson reported with a smile. All Council ships have been successfully disabled. Hernandez let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. The trap had worked. The Council ships had triggered the invisible quantum-linked defensive grid, a network of satellites that didn't stop weapons, but instead sent a precise pulse that shut down any ship systems within its range. Send the message, Hernandez ordered. Wilson typed commands into her console. Across all frequencies in perfect Council standard language, the transmission went out. This was a demonstration. We could have destroyed your vessels but chose not to. We will defend ourselves proportionally to any aggression. Your move, Council. On the screen, the disabled Council ships floated helplessly above Mars. Their crews would be working frantically to restart systems, but it would take hours before they succeeded. Status of the underground colony, Hernandez asked. All systems normal. No damage reported. The colonists are safe. Hernandez nodded. Now we wait for their response. In the Galactic Council chambers across the galaxy, panic spread through the ruling members. The head counselor, Tarlvoth, stared at the emergency message from their fleet. Impossible, he clicked, his mantis-like limbs twitching with anger. How did these primitives disable 20 of our best ships without firing a single shot? That's not the most disturbing part, said Counselor Drevik, checking another report. Their message was sent in perfect Council standard language. They know our language. How? We've only just made contact with them. Unknown. But this suggests they've been studying us longer than we realized. A junior counselor nervously approached. There's more troubling news. Several member species are requesting information about the human defense system. They seem impressed. Zarlvoth's compound eyes narrowed. No species has ever resisted us like this. The humans must be made an example of. But our ships, Drevik started. Send the main fleet, Zarlvoth ordered. All of it. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Clark received Hernandez's report with satisfaction. The Council had taken the bait and revealed both their intentions and their technical vulnerabilities. Send word to Director Martinez, she ordered. Begin Phase 2 of Operation Deterrent. The real test of human resolve was about to begin. Elizabeth Turner, Secretary General of the United Nations, stood on the platform in the newly built space station orbiting Earth. This time, the meeting place was larger, designed to hold not just the Council representatives, but delegates from 17 other spacefaring species who had requested to observe the unprecedented situation. Turner had been a diplomat for 30 years, but even she felt nervous. The future of humanity might depend on what happened in the next few hours. The doors opened and aliens of all shapes and sizes entered the chamber. The 7 Council representatives came first, followed by observers from other worlds. Humans had never seen so many different alien species in one place before. Zarlvoth, still leading the Council delegation, looked angry if humans could read his alien expressions correctly. The failed attack on Mars had clearly damaged the Council's reputation. You have violated Council law by resisting our authority. Zarlvoth began without any greeting. Our main fleet is now positioned to strike Earth directly. This is your final chance to surrender. Turner remained calm. Before we address your threat, I would like to welcome all species present here today. She nodded respectfully to the observer section. Humanity is pleased to meet our galactic neighbors, even under these difficult circumstances. This small gesture, acknowledging the observers as equals rather than subjects, was not lost on the watching aliens. Several of them shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the Council representatives. The Council's approach to interstellar diplomacy is fundamentally flawed. Turner continued, her voice clear and confident. Threats as a first contact protocol demonstrate a civilization that has forgotten the value of diversity and innovation. Zarlvoth's limbs twitched angrily. You dare lecture us on civilization. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. Through fear and control, Turner replied. Not true cooperation. Humanity proposes an alternative. She touched a control on her wrist device. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing a new type of interstellar agreement. We call this the Galactic Cooperative Charter, Turner explained. It's based on respect for sovereignty and voluntary technological exchange. No species commands another. All contribute to and benefit from shared knowledge. The observer species leaned forward with interest. Several began talking among themselves in their own languages. This is nonsense. Zarlvoth clicked angrily. The Council system works. It prevents war and chaos. Does it? Turner asked. Or does it simply prevent any challenge to your authority? She turned to address the observers directly. We've studied the Council's history. For thousands of years, they've controlled access to advanced technology, keeping the best for themselves while giving just enough to other species to make them dependent. This statement caused a stir among the observers. One of them, a tall blue-skinned alien, stood up. Is this true? It asked the Council representatives. Has our world been given inferior technology deliberately? Zarlvoth's compound eyes darted nervously. Of course not. The humans are lying to divide us. But the damage was done. 5 more observer species began questioning the Council representatives. The unified front was breaking down. Enough. Zarlvoth shouted, rising to full height. This meeting is over. The humans have made their choice. As the Council representatives stormed out, Turner noticed that not all the observer species followed them. Several stayed behind, looking at the humans with new interest. "Your people took a great risk standing against the Council," said the blue-skinned alien who had spoken up. "My world, Nidra, has been under Council rule for 2,000 years. We would be interested in learning more about your cooperative charter." Turner smiled. "We would be honored to share it with you." By the end of the day, 5 former Council member species had expressed interest in the human alternative. The balance of power was shifting before their eyes. Meanwhile, human intelligence agents made another critical discovery. The Council's leadership consisted of only 3 species, who controlled the others through technological dependence and military threat. Their entire power structure depended on newer civilizations believing resistance was futile. As news spread across the galaxy that humans had not only resisted the Council, but offered an alternative system, more species began to question what they had accepted for centuries. The revolution had begun, not with weapons, but with an idea. Councillor Exarlvoth paced the main chamber of the Council flagship. Reports from across the galaxy showed growing unrest. Half the Council species now openly questioned the approach to Earth. "These humans have managed what no other species has attempted," argued Councillor Trell of the Nidron. His blue skin flushed with emotion. "They've exposed the flaws in our governance model. They are dangerous primitives." Exarlvoth insisted, striking the table with a sharp limb. "We must crush them before more members defect." The Council leaders had called an emergency meeting, but instead of unity, they faced division. 3 other Council members had already signed preliminary agreements with Earth's cooperative charter. "Perhaps we should consider their proposal," suggested Councillor Merrick, representing a species that had been with the Council for over 5,000 years. "A cooperative approach might benefit all." "Benefit?" Exarlvoth interrupted. "You speak of benefit when our very authority is under threat. The Council doesn't negotiate with lesser species. We rule them." Councillor Drevik, Exarlvoth's longtime ally, looked at the tactical display showing the location of all Council ships. "Our main fleet is in position. We should strike Earth now, make an example of them." Merrick stood up. "I cannot support this action. My world withdraws from this military operation." "Mine as well," said Trell. Exarlvoth's compound eyes narrowed. "Then you are no longer needed in these discussions." After the dissenting councillors left, Exarlvoth turned to the remaining loyal members. "We still have enough ships to crush Earth. Once the humans are defeated, the others will fall back in line." The order was given. 300 Council warships, the largest fleet assembled in centuries, moved toward Earth. Admiral Clark stood on the bridge of the UNSC flagship Defiance, watching the approaching Council fleet on the main screen. Earth's orbital defense platforms were fully activated, and the Jupiter fleet had moved into position. "They had brought more ships than we expected," said Captain Eric Ward. "But fewer than they could have," Clark noted. "Some Council members must have refused to participate." The communication officer looked up from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from 7 former Council species. They're offering support." Clark raised an eyebrow in surprise. "What kind of support?" "Military. They've sent ships to join our defense." As they watched, vessels of various alien designs appeared near Earth, positioning themselves alongside human ships. It was an unprecedented alliance, formed in just days. "Open a channel to all ships," Clark ordered. "Council and allied vessels." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Clark straightened her uniform. "This is Admiral Olivia Clark of the United Nations Space Command. To our allies, we welcome your support. To Council vessels, we offer one final chance to withdraw and discuss peaceful resolution." The response came immediately from the Council flagship. "Humans, your defiance ends today." The Council fleet opened fire. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked toward Earth's defenses. "Shields holding," reported the tactical officer. "All platforms functioning at optimal levels." Clark nodded. "Target weapons and propulsion systems only. We want to disable, not destroy." Human and allied ships returned fire with precision. The battle around Earth lit up the darkness of space. Council ships, designed for intimidation rather than prolonged combat, began taking heavy damage. Their tactics, unchanged for centuries, were predictable. They expected enemies to break and run, not stand and fight intelligently. In the Defiance's tactical center, officers coordinated the battle using the advanced computer systems humans had developed, combining Earth's military experience with the reverse-engineered alien technology. After less than an hour, the Council fleet began to retreat. 30 of their ships had been destroyed, and over 100 disabled. The rest pulled back, abandoning their mission. "They're running," Captain Ward said with surprise. "They've never faced a real challenge before," Clark replied. "They don't know how to adapt." News of the Council's defeat spread rapidly across the galaxy. For the first time in thousands of years, the mighty Galactic Council had not just failed to subjugate a species, they had been defeated in open battle. More importantly, they had been beaten by a coalition. Humans fighting alongside former Council races presented a new model of interstellar relations, one based on cooperation rather than domination. On the Council homeworlds, populations began to question their leaders. Why had they been told humans were primitive when they clearly weren't? What other lies had the Council told them over the centuries? Daniel Rivera, head of Earth's Intelligence Division, walked into the United Nations Security Council chamber carrying a small data device. The room was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth, all waiting to hear his findings. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," Rivera said, connecting his device to the main display system. "What I'm about to share will change our understanding of the galaxy." The lights dimmed, and images appeared on the large screen. They showed ancient ruins on distant planets, technical diagrams, and intercepted Council communications. "For the past month, we've been analyzing data from Council ships and working with our new allies," Rivera explained. "What we've discovered is shocking." He brought up an image of a strange city with technology far beyond even the Council's level. The Galactic Council has been manipulating technological development across the galaxy for millennia. But here's the most important part. Their advanced technology isn't even originally theirs. Murmurs spread through the room. Admiral Clark leaned forward with interest. "According to records provided by the Nidron and confirmed by our analysis, the 3 dominant Council species discovered an abandoned civilization's technology cache approximately 12,000 years ago. This civilization, which we're calling the Precursors, was far more advanced than any current species." Rivera showed more images: massive ruins, incredible machines, and strange symbols. Instead of sharing this discovery, the founding Council members used it to establish control over other species. They reverse-engineered the technology, but kept the most advanced systems for themselves. "So they've been lying to everyone?" asked the Chinese representative. "Yes. They portray themselves as the most advanced species who developed this technology naturally. But they're really just scavengers who found someone else's tools and used them to become bullies." Rivera brought up more data. "The Council deliberately restricts innovation and independence. They provide member species with enough technology to improve their lives, but not enough to become truly self-sufficient or to challenge Council authority." The Russian president frowned. "Why didn't other species discover this before now?" "Fear and isolation," Rivera answered. "The Council keeps different species separated from each other, controls all interstellar communication, and harshly punishes any who question their authority. Until humanity came along, no one had both the capability and the courage to stand against them." Rivera showed a final set of images, technical diagrams of Council ships, weapons, and defenses. "By studying their technology, we've identified critical weaknesses in their systems. But more importantly, we've begun to understand how the precursor technology actually works. In some areas, we've already improved on the Council's implementations." Admiral Clark stood up. "What you're saying is that humans aren't just resisting Council rule. We're actively surpassing their technological level. Exactly, Rivera nodded. The greatest threat we pose isn't military. It's ideological. We represent what they fear most, a species that values independence and develops its own path forward. As Rivera's presentation concluded, the Secretary General addressed the room. This information changes everything. The Council isn't just fighting to control Earth. They're fighting to maintain the lie they've built their entire civilization upon. Over the next week, Rivera's findings were carefully shared with trusted representatives from other species. The reaction was immediate and powerful. Races that had been subjugated for thousands of years began to question everything they'd been told. Council authority crumbled further as more species withdrew their support. The three dominant Council races tried to maintain control through threats and shows of force, but without the unified fleet, their military advantage was greatly reduced. On a dozen worlds, peaceful revolutions began as populations demanded answers from their leaders. Why had they been kept dependent? Why had innovation been discouraged? Why had they been taught to fear rather than explore? In the Council's central chambers, Karl Voth and the remaining loyal leaders made desperate plans. "We've ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years," Karl Voth declared. "We won't surrender to primitives now. Prepare the ancients' weapons." This order, to use forbidden technology from the precursor cache that even the Council feared, showed how desperate they had become. The final confrontation was coming, and both sides knew it would determine the future of all galactic civilization. 5 years after first contact, the massive orbital platform above Earth hosted the inaugural session of the Galactic Cooperative. The circular chamber was filled with representatives from 32 different species, all gathered to sign the Terran Accords, a new framework for interstellar relations. Ambassador Sean Foster, now serving as humanity's representative, looked around with pride. The chamber was a physical symbol of what they had accomplished, a place where all species met as equals, not as rulers and subjects. The last 5 years had not been easy. The Council leadership had made one final, desperate attempt to reassert control using weapons from the precursor cache. The devastating devices had threatened to destroy entire star systems. But the combined forces of Earth and their allies had prevailed. Scientists from a dozen worlds worked together to understand and counter the ancient technology. What the Council had studied in secret for millennia, the Cooperative decoded in months through open collaboration. The defeated Council leaders had retreated to their homeworlds, their influence diminished but not eliminated. Everyone knew they would eventually attempt to reassert control. Secretary General Turner approached the central podium. The chamber fell silent. 5 years ago, humanity faced a choice: submit to control or stand firm for our independence, she began. We chose to stand firm, not just for ourselves, but for the principle that all sentient beings deserve self-determination. Representatives from across the galaxy nodded in agreement. Many had suffered under Council rule for thousands of years. The Terran Accords we signed today establish 3 core principles, Turner continued. First, the sovereignty of all worlds. No species may force its will upon another. Second, open sharing of knowledge and technology for the benefit of all. And third, mutual defense against any who would threaten these principles. The blue-skinned Nidron representative, Trell, rose to speak. For 2,000 years, my people believed we needed the Council to protect us. We now know that true security comes not from submission to a powerful few, but from cooperation among many. One by one, representatives from each species signed the document. Some used electronic devices, others pressed appendages into specially designed ink, and a few used methods humans couldn't even describe. But all were equal signatories to the new agreement. As the ceremony concluded, Foster found himself standing beside a Varaxian scientist whose species had helped decode the precursor technology. "Your people did something remarkable," the Varaxian said, "not just resisting the Council, but offering an alternative. That was the true revolution." Foster nodded. "We never wanted to fight, but we refused to surrender our independence. In standing firm, we discovered we weren't just defending Earth. We were creating an opportunity for all species to reclaim their autonomy. Looking out the viewport, Foster could see ships of various designs patrolling Earth's orbit, the combined fleet of the cooperative. Each world contributed what they could to the mutual defense force. Reports from across the galaxy showed a new era of innovation and progress. Species that had been restricted for centuries were now developing their own technology, often improving on what the Council had provided. Most promising were the joint research projects studying the precursor ruins. With dozens of species working together openly, they were making breakthroughs the Council never had. We've received reports that the former Council leaders are building new ships, the Varaxian mentioned. They will try again. Foster nodded. We expect that. But when that day comes, they won't face humanity alone. They'll face a galaxy that has learned an important lesson. What lesson is that? The Varaxian asked. That sometimes the most powerful response to a threat isn't a bigger weapon, Foster replied. It's simply refusing to flinch. As the delegates departed for the celebration dinner, Foster took one last look at the signed Terran Accords. From a simple act of defiance, refusing to bow to threats, had come a transformation that spanned the galaxy. The Council had started by threatening humans, thinking they would submit like so many before them. Instead, that threat had sparked a revolution that would reshape civilization across the stars for millennia to come. And it all began because humans didn't flinch.